Most people who say they want to retire at 35 don't actually want to stop working. They want to stop doing work they hate. Those are completely different things, and the FIRE movement has kind of blurred that line in a way that I think is making people miserable.
Okay, but hang on. Is that not just a semantic argument? Because if I could retire at 35 and do whatever I wanted, I genuinely don't think I'd care what you called it.
That's exactly my point. You'd still be doing something. You'd just be calling it not work.
Right, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Welcome to Sunk Cost. Two friends, one mic, and a lot of opinions about money. I'm Alex. Sofia's here with me as always, and we are digging into what modern life actually costs us and whether it's worth it. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Today, the FIRE movement. Financially independent, retire early. People quitting their jobs in their 30s with a spreadsheet and a dream. Geniuses or completely delusional? Sofia, opening take. Go.
Okay, my opening take is that FIRE is a genuinely interesting idea wrapped in a lot of magical thinking. The math can work. The psychology almost never does.
Right, so you're not against the concept. You're against the execution.
I'm against the way it gets sold. Because the version you see online, I retired at 33, I live off dividends, I wake up when I want. That person is usually either extremely lucky, extremely privileged, has a partner with income, or is making money talking about having retired. It's a content business dressed up as a lifestyle.
Oh, that is a bit harsh. Is it not possible that some of them just did it?
Some of them did it, sure. And some people win the lottery. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying the survivorship bias is off the charts.
Okay, so here's where I land on this. And I know you're going to come at me. I actually think FIRE as a concept is one of the most psychologically healthy things to come out of personal finance in years. Not because everyone should do it, but because it forces you to ask, how much do I actually need? What am I working for? Most people never ask those questions. They just keep going.
Okay, I'll give you that. The framing question is useful.
Right? Because the number people arrive at is almost always smaller than what they thought. You realize you've been working for the car payment, the flat upgrade, the stuff, not for actual life.
The 4% rule is the backbone of most FIRE math, by the way. The idea that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio every year indefinitely without running out. It comes from actual research, the Trinity study. So at least the foundation isn't made up.
Right, so if you've got £1,000,000 saved, you can pull 40 grand a year and theoretically never touch the principal.
In theory, based on historical market returns. Which brings me to my first real problem with it. That math was built on a specific historical window of market performance. Nobody actually knows if it holds for the next 50 years.
50 years! That's the thing though, isn't it? If you retire at 35, you're planning for potentially 60 years of not earning. That is a genuinely mental amount of time to fund.
And here's where it gets weird. Because most FIRE people I've read about don't actually stop earning at 35. They just reduce. They do consulting, they start a blog, they do something. So the retire part is kind of a lie.
Which is almost what you said at the top. They're not retiring. They're just doing different work on their own terms.
Exactly. And look, I think that's actually fine. Choosing your work is a form of wealth. But call it what it is.
Financially independent, do consulting from a beach. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it though, does it?
Not as many clicks, no.
But here's the thing I want to push back on. I think you're being a bit elitist about this, and I don't mean that nastily. The FIRE people who actually pull it off are almost exclusively high earners in tech or finance, who saved aggressively in their 20s. Which means most people engaging with FIRE content aren't actually going to retire early. They're just going to get better at thinking about money. And is that not a good outcome?
Okay, that's actually a fair point.
I reckon the real value of FIRE isn't the retirement, it's the lifestyle audit it forces. You start tracking every quid, you cut the subscriptions. I say you loosely, obviously, and you realize how much you are spending on nothing.
You still have 17 subscriptions, right?
I think it's crept up to 19, honestly. I found 2 more last week. One of them I have no memory of signing up for whatsoever.
This is why we don't give financial advice on this show.
God no. Don't take money advice from me. I am the cautionary tale, not the case study.
Okay, but seriously? And obviously we're two people with opinions, not your financial advisors. The FIRE math only works if you're extremely disciplined for a decade or more in your highest earning years. Most people aren't wired for that. And that's not a character flaw, that's just how humans are built. Present bias is real. Kahneman and Tversky basically proved we systematically discount future rewards in favor of present ones.
Which is why telling someone to live on 40% of their salary for 10 years is a lot.
It's a lot. And there's a real sacrifice conversation nobody wants to have. Because the FIRE content online skips the part where you're 28, your friends are going on holiday, getting married, buying flats, and you're eating rice and beans and maxing your index funds.
I'll be honest with you. I tried something adjacent to this once. Proper budgeting, cutting everything back. Lasted about 6 weeks. Then Jess and I went to a festival and that was basically the end of that.
To be fair, festivals will get you every time.
Every time. There's always a festival or a holiday or someone's birthday dinner, and suddenly the budget is just aspirational.
But here's the uncomfortable angle I want to raise, because I think we're dancing around it. FIRE as it's practiced is mostly a movement for people who already have a lot. The median worker doesn't have the income cushion to save 60% of their salary. So when FIRE influencers say, anyone can do this, that's not really true.
Right, and I think that's the genuinely dodgy part of it. Not the math, the marketing. The way it gets presented as this universal path when actually it requires either a very high income, a very low cost of living, or both.
And the low cost of living thing? I want to talk about that because some FIRE people move to cheaper countries, which, fine, personal choice, but there's something a bit odd about I achieved financial freedom by taking my wealth somewhere it goes further. That's arbitrage, not retirement.
Geographic arbitrage. That's the phrase they use. It makes it sound like a financial instrument when really you've just moved somewhere your money works harder.
Which is a valid strategy, but it does require you to uproot your entire life, leave your community, potentially be far from family. Those are real costs that don't show up in the spreadsheet.
The spreadsheet doesn't have a column for missed your mum's birthday 3 years running.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing FIRE culture underweights. Social capital and community have real value. Isolation is expensive in ways that aren't financial.
Okay, so here's where I want to push the debate though. Because everything you're saying is true. But I think there's a version of FIRE that is genuinely brilliant and doesn't get enough credit. Not the retire at 33 and live on a beach version. The build enough of a cushion that you can walk away from a job you hate without panicking version. That's not early retirement. That's just financial resilience.
That's the FI without the RE. Financial independence. Full stop. And honestly, I'm completely on board with that. Having a year's worth of expenses saved changes your relationship with work entirely. You negotiate differently. You don't stay in bad situations out of desperation.
That is the actual goal, isn't it? Not retiring at 35 to play golf forever, but having enough of a buffer that work becomes a choice rather than a trap. That feels like the real insight buried in all the fire content.
Final boss take, and I mean this. Fire in its extreme form is actually bad for society. Hear me out. If everyone who is talented, educated, and high-earning exits the workforce in their 30s, you hollow out institutions. You lose mentorship. You lose institutional knowledge. There's a collective cost to mass voluntary exit that nobody talks about because it's not a personal finance question. It's a social one.
Are you having me on? You're arguing that people should keep working for the good of society. That is that's a proper controversial take.
I'm not saying they're obligated to. I'm saying the cultural conversation around fire is entirely individualistic. What do I need? What can I save? When can I leave? And there's almost no discussion of what we owe each other in the labor market. That absence is interesting.
I don't entirely disagree. But I also think telling a 34-year-old who's knackered and burned out that they should keep working for the greater good is a bit of a tough sell.
Oh, totally. I'm not prescribing anything. I just think it's a conversation worth having.
And that is exactly what this show is for. Right. Where do we land? My take is this. The extreme version of fire, retire at 35, live off dividends forever, is mostly a fantasy that works for a very small number of people in very specific circumstances. But the underlying question fire forces you to ask, how much is enough and what am I actually working toward? That question is genuinely valuable. Most people would benefit from sitting with it, even if they never follow through on the answer.
And mine is, don't optimize your entire 20s for a retirement you might not even enjoy. The research on what makes people happy, and this one goes back to the classic happiness studies, is pretty consistent. It's not leisure time. It's meaningful work, autonomy, connection. You can chase that without quitting at 35.
That feels like the most sensible thing either of us has said this whole episode.
I've been waiting to deploy it.
Right, that is sunk cost for this Thursday. Cheers for being here, genuinely. Next week, it's Sofia's week, and she's kicking off Monday with why concert tickets now cost an absolute fortune, and what's actually going on with the experience economy. That one's going to get spicy. Until then, spend wisely, or at least, spend with your eyes open.
My week. See you Monday.